listening to Rescue Community Church. For more information, check us out at www.rescue.cc.
Human being on the planet. I can't even get past him, let alone the scary things or the strange things. He's too creepy for me. So I'm like, Tom, one season of this is enough for Beck. This little kid, like, I feel like he's looking into my soul. When he's on, he's strange. He's a strange child. They definitely picked right. He's just a creepy kid. He's super creepy. Even worse than the girl named 11. Like, her name's 11. She should be creepier than him. She's not to me. That poor little boy. He's a human, and I'm being mean right now, so forgive me, Jesus. So, all right, we are in our Manger Things series. Christmas, guys, Christmas is 8 days away? 8 days away. I can't believe it. It went by really, really fast. The thing about God in general for me is that he doesn't do anything the way I would do it, ever. Like, it's good that I'm not God, first of all. I want to throw that out there. It's good. Lots of things would have changed. Lots of things. Like, I'd never sweat. Like, sweat would not have been a real thing if I were God. Like, I can think of a whole ton of things. Like, you would just be picturesque. Everybody would have picturesque bodies and not have to work out if I were God. I mean, that's how it would be. My hair would never be frizzy. That's how it would be. However, I ain't God. And he's much better at it than I am. So, as we were going through this series, and Tom and I were deciding, what message I would get to preach. This is one that felt good for me because I'm always like, God, why do you do the things that you do? Why do you do them that way? I like a little bit more explanation. I want to know why. Like, what were you thinking when you did all of this? And so this morning I'm going to talk to you about the miracle method. The miracle method to the manger, to who God is. His methods are crazy to me. So we're going to go through that today. How many of you grew up believing in Santa Claus? Anybody grew up believing in Santa Claus? How many of you were like, Santa Claus is Satan, and in your home, and you immediately were like, nope, no Santa in our house? Yep, there's a few of you. We did not celebrate Santa in our house. We didn't, okay? So which was probably a good thing, because I think I would have been like my son is, because two of my 3 children do no longer believe in Santa, but Noah does. And so we have this magical thing called the elf on the shelf. Anybody do that? Anybody do the elf on the shelf? Any of you not have children yet? Do not do elf on the shelf. I'm throwing that out there. It's enough. If you don't know what elf on the shelf is, are there children in here?
Yes.
Awesome, Levi. You're awesome. P.S. on the elf later, okay? We'll talk about elf on the shelf later, right? Anyway, so my son came to me. Sweet. My son came to me. Nothing like ruining Christmas. Way to go. So my son came to me earlier, a couple weeks ago, and he's like, I got to know, this is how he said it, because for some reason, since he got glasses, he thinks I don't know what, something happened to him. He has this like, kind of little like, not an attitude, but a little bit, he thinks he's super cool in his glasses. So he comes up and he says, I got to know how Santa gets those presents to all the children in one night. He said, I've seen you rap. I know you can't rap that fast, and you only have us. So how do you do it? And I'm like, magic? It's magic, right? It's gotta be magic. So that's kind of how I feel about God and the idea of the manger, and the idea of him coming to earth has to be sort of magic or something, because it doesn't make any sense. And so I want to talk about 3 ways that God's methods are a little bit crazy, and about his methods. So God's methods transcend us. Romans 11:33 says, oh, how great are God's riches and wisdom and knowledge. How impossible it is for us to understand his decisions and his ways. I used to get so flustered that I didn't understand why God did the things that he did. I didn't understand, why would you pick this? Why would you do this? And this verse is so freeing to me. It says, how impossible is it for us to understand his decisions and ways? It kind of gave me a get out of jail free card, because I don't have to understand them. I'm not going to understand them. He tells us right there, you're not going to get it. It's impossible for you to understand all of his ways. And so in Paul's writing, he's telling us about how amazing God is and all the things that he does. And think about creation. God spoke and something happened. If you're a parent, you know when you speak, nothing happens. So that in itself is magical. Like that God said, hey, let there be light, and there was light. Has anybody, summer's my favorite with the kids because it's flip-flops. Like they can slide their feet in their shoes and go outside, or not wear shoes outside, quite frankly. I hate this time of year when it comes to shoes. You know why? Because I gotta find socks, and the kids have to get their shoes on. If you've ever been a mother trying to get out the door quickly, your children for some reason have this aversion like it's the plague to actually get their shoes on. I'm like, kids, get your shoes on. Get your shoes on. Guys, we have to leave in 3 minutes. Get your shoes on. And I'm trying, when I start to go, it's bad. So I'm trying to keep it in. I'm trying to be an adult. I'm like, Noah! Trying to still smile. Get your shoes on! He's like, why are you so mad? I'm like, we have to go, and you don't have your shoes on. How is that hard for you to understand why I'm mad? And I'm yelling. He's like, geez. With his dumb little glasses face. Geez, Mom, why are you yelling? Well, because I asked you nicely 36 times to put your shoes on. Why are you only hearing the 37th time when I yelled at you? Why can't you do it 5? I'll even give you 5. So, when I think about God, everything about him transcends us. That's it. Everything about him is so unbelievable, so amazing, so different than how we would do it. That's just all there is to it. And I think one of the best ways is how he decided to come to the earth. If you don't know the Christmas story, he came as a helpless, defenseless baby. Babies can do no things but poop and eat, and they cry. That's it. That's all they know how to do. They are cute. They're lucky they're cute. Because if they weren't, nobody'd have babies anymore. If they weren't cute, you wouldn't have kids. Sometimes you're just like, oh, you're lucky you're cute. I haven't slept in 6 months. You're lucky you're cute. God's message transcends us. If I were God, again, we talked about what a terrible thing that would be if I were God. But if I were God, this is how I would have sent my son. First of all, I would not have sent him as a baby. I would have sent him as like this amazing, awesome king strutting down in his Rolls Royce in the middle of Bethlehem. Loudspeakers, the best music you've ever heard, and being like, yo, I'm here. Now you guys can relax. I'm here. I would have done it that way, right? You want people to know who God is. You want them to know that he's here. He's finally arrived. He is amazing. He's going to change everything you've ever experienced. He comes as a baby in a barn. I literally have asked God 50 times, why? Of all things, why? And on top of that, he comes as a baby, and then he's born to really poor parents. If you don't know the story, they say that Mary was anywhere between 14 and 16 years old. Not a queen. She was part of David's lineage, so to fulfill the prophets, but she is this unmarried teenage girl. And then her fiance, because she was engaged to Joseph at the time, is like, I'm out. That's it, I'm out. I'm not doing this. Well, thank God, God sends an angel. He sends an angel to Joseph, and he's like, look, Mary's not lying. She is pregnant. Nobody else's baby but God's. You still have to marry her. What? Guys, think about how ridiculous if you're engaged and your girlfriend comes to you and says, I'm pregnant, nothing happened, it's God's baby. Are you staying? You ain't staying. You're not staying. First of all, you're going to say she's crazy. You're going to be like, dodge that bullet. I'm not marrying that. Then you're going to be like, she's a liar. Like, she's crazy and she's a liar. Joseph stayed. An angel came to him and Joseph stayed. They were plain, ordinary people whose hearts were in the right place. And as Isaiah 55:8-9 says, my thoughts are nothing like your thoughts, says the Lord. Thank God. I mean, really, it's so glad God doesn't think the way that I do. And my ways are far beyond anything you could imagine. For just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts. God's methods are so different from ours. Here's the thing, though. We really should not be surprised at this story. And every time I think about it, it still freaks me out. I've heard it a million times. But God used He used people that we wouldn't necessarily use. He chose Abraham to leave his home and travel to the promised land. He chose Joseph. He was the next to the youngest son of Jacob. He chose Joseph to change the world. I mean, if it wasn't for Joseph, Egypt would, do you know, because Joseph, if you don't know the story of Joseph, he was sold into slavery by his brothers. And then his brothers told his dad that he got eaten by wolves. Guys, if you haven't read the Old Testament, you should get on that. It's amazing. It's amazing. His brothers sold him, then said he got eaten by wolves. He was sold into slavery, and then, I won't share the whole great story. He comes into a place of power only second in command to Pharaoh. And if it wouldn't have been for Joseph, all of Egypt would have starved and the famine would have destroyed all people as we know it. But Joseph's smarts and him listening to the Lord changed the world as they know it. God chooses some really weird people and some really weird methods to get his magic, as I call it, across. He uses really insignificant in the world's mind people and ways. He chose David to bring his son through. David was a shepherd boy, and he chose David to be the king of Israel. He chose Bethlehem, a small, insignificant town. Think about it. He could have been born in any amazing city, but no, he's born in a barn in Bethlehem. And he even could have chose a different people, Israel. Israel was a small, insignificant nation in that time frame. But he chose somebody small. The great news is that ordinary people can change the world. He uses ordinary people every time. And I love that about God. I can't imagine that being a new mom. I remember when I was pregnant with Kenzie, it was literally the worst 9 months of my entire life. I thought, I can never do this again. I obviously did it 2 more times. I thought for sure I was going to die. And so as soon as, I threw up like 7 to 10 times a day, I'm not kidding, for 9 full months. Tom asked the doctor, he's like, is my baby going to live? I was like, baby, what about me? Am I going to live? What are you worried about the thing you haven't met yet for? Me, I'm going to die. This is totally out. I have to tell you the story. I was leading worship at a small church, and I was probably 6 months pregnant at the time. I look over to Tom and I'm like, I hope you can sing, because I literally run off the stage. I puked in the lobby. I thought, this is terrible. Who decides to do this to themselves? Have children. So this poor woman, Mary, my child, Abby, has decided she's not having kids. She's been around babies a lot. She goes, if they're too much work, how they come out is disgusting, she said. I don't want them. She goes, you're not getting any grandkids from me. I'm like, you'll change your mind. She's like, no, I won't. Of all kids that won't change their mind, it may be her. So God brought his son, Jesus, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the greatest human/God. That's a whole nother series we talk about later. That's not happening today. He brought him into the earth as a baby, born in a barn. I'm sure that Joseph was being a good husband and he got some clean straw and wiped out the trough, for crying out loud. I mean, the kid was born in a feeder. They put him in a feeder. I'm sure he made it as nice as he possibly could. It's still a barn, guys. His methods transcend us. I don't get why he does the things. The second thing about God is his methods include us. I don't know why he chooses to include us. I don't know why, but he does. Because again, if I were God, I would just say, you, and you. Okay, good, you're doing that. And that's it. I would probably done it robotically, quite frankly. Because again, I have children who don't put their shoes on. So as a mother, I would have, oh, put your shoes on? Yes, mother. And put their shoes on. Again, I'm not God. It's good that I'm not. So God's methods include us. Does anybody know who the angels came to first when they were announcing Christ? The shepherds. We don't have a lot of shepherds roaming around here. But shepherds were in fields with animals at all times. Can you even fathom the level of smell that radiated from those humans? I mean, honestly, we have to think about these things. So, the angels are coming and they're telling about Jesus is coming to earth. They don't go to the king. They don't go to Pharaoh. They don't go to like some wealthy human being who can get the word out by camel or donkey or horse or messenger, however they got the word out, snail mail, I don't know. However they got it out. They didn't go to him. The angel came to shepherds. Shepherds in that time frame were such lowly people that oftentimes they weren't even allowed to eat at the table with the people they worked for. They were uneducated. They were considered kind of second or third class citizens. So for God to come to shepherds was, again, crazy pants. Like, it was one of his things, like, here he goes. He's going to do what he wants again. He chooses to make an announcement to the shepherds. And I think that he did that because everything in the Bible is so that we can see that God can still use us, that God wants to work in us, that God wants to work through us. I think if God would have done it how I would have done it and gone through a king, all of us would feel like, I'm not that person. I can't possibly do anything for the Lord. I can't possibly. If he used everybody that had it together all the time, I think that we would not be able to relate. We wouldn't be able to relate to the story. And the more you think about it, the more incredible the story becomes. Because Jesus then continues when in his life, he continues to do things that are so far out of the norm. And he continues to use people that nobody else would want to use. Do you remember who Jesus went to first, who he revealed himself to first when he rose from the dead? Does anybody remember? A woman. I said it, a woman. He revealed himself to a woman. In that culture, women were to be seen, and not even seen, definitely not heard, and sometimes not even seen. We talk about in America about inequality for women. We should shut our yaps. There are people in the world that cannot do anything as women. I'm able to stand up here. I live in a country that I can speak about Jesus freely. I have lots of wonderful freedoms. These women did not. And of course, Jesus, see, again, if I were Jesus, I would have risen from the dead. I would have gone, oh! Right, actually, I would have appeared on the cross where everybody was still sad about it. I would have come and I would have floated. Because people can't fly, just in case you wondered. I would have flown, just hovered a little above the floor. And I would have gone to the priest. Not Jesus. He shows himself to a woman, a person that in that culture was insignificant. I love that he does that. His plan is so different, and this is why he revealed himself to these people. Because if Jesus would have revealed himself in public, if he would have revealed himself the way I would have done it, he would have had no need for his followers to share the love of God. He put the responsibility on our shoulders and his followers' shoulders at the time to share who Jesus was. Think about it. If he would have shown himself right in the town square, everybody would have known. Wow. And immediately everybody would have believed in God because they just saw him die. But he involves us. He includes us. We get to do his work. He decided that he was going to entrust his small group of followers to sharing the love of God all over the world. He does things so differently than you and I would have done. He uses ordinary people to do extraordinary things. I know you've heard that. It's a cliche. It's a cheesy thing. But it is real. He uses ordinary folks like you and me to change the world around him. And his story, the manger story, the story of his resurrection, the story of his love, was meant to include us. It was meant so that we can feel its power and so that the people in our lives can feel the power of Jesus. Think about it if he would have just done it on his own. I love this. In 1 Corinthians, it says, 1 Corinthians 1:26, it says, remember, dear brothers and sisters, that few of you were wise in the world's eyes, or powerful, or wealthy when God called you. Few of you. So he's talking to his disciples here saying, remember, God has called you to the greatest thing in the entire world. Jesus revealed himself to you in this moment. Remember where you came from and remember that God can use you. God's methods haven't changed. He still sees you when you're reading your Bible at home, or when you're struggling, or when you're praying for your friend, or when you're praying for someone. He sees that. He's proud of that. He wants you to move on that. He wants you to do something about it. God's manger, God coming to earth was meant to include you. God uses his simplest vessels. You know, I'm not smart all the time. I'm thankful that God gets to use me. I'm not right all the time. Most of the time. Last time, 97% of the time. I'll give him 3%. No, he's actually more right than me, which is annoying. God uses all of us. In our ordinary, everyday lives, he uses us. And I love that he does that. He could have just come and done it all himself. I mean, he did create the universe by speaking. He could have just come and done this all himself, but he wanted us to feel something and feel passionate about what he does. So God's method, it includes us, it transcends us, but it also then sanctifies us. This is what I love about God's methods. Can you begin to imagine Mary, 14, 15 years old, sleeping, and this angel comes into her room saying, you're gonna get pregnant, and it's gonna be Jesus, and he's the Son of God. You have to do it. Are you gonna do it? I'd have been like, pulling the blanket over my head and going back to sleep. She did it, and did it, and we all think, yay, we see Mary as this halo over her head, and she was a teenage girl. If you know any teenage girls, I remember being a teenage girl from like 12 to 15. It's a wretched time to be a human being. Middle school years are terrible. They're terrible. She was still that young. We don't think about those times. We don't think about how they both said yes. Mary and Joseph both said yes. Say, okay, God, we're going to trust you. We don't read in between the chapters. We don't read between the lines. We go from she's pregnant, she talks to Elizabeth, she's on a donkey, she has a baby. She was still pregnant for 10 months, everybody. She had to deal with the shame. She had to deal with, think about all the things Joseph had to deal with. And Joseph and Mary did not become married, if you know what I'm saying. They didn't get married. They didn't, until after Jesus was born. Good on Joseph. I don't know many guys that be like, we're married now, hands off for 10 months. What? We don't think about those sorts of things. Here's the thing about God's methods. Those two trusted God. They trusted him in the mess. They trusted him in the midst of, holy cow, I said yes to having the Son of God, but my girlfriends are going to think, everybody thought she was a liar. I'm just throwing that out there. Not everybody had an angel come to them. Mary and Joseph, that's it. They were the only ones with angels. Like Mary's dad was like, this is not how I raised you. That's what he said. And Joseph's parents are like, really? This is who you picked? You're going to stay with her? Think about it. We don't think about those things. But Mary and Joseph decided to stay. They decided to be trusting in God even in the mess. When you Give yourself over to the methods of God. When you trust God, you're trusting every piece of what God has for you. Every ounce of what's about to occur, you've got to trust God in. The good, the bad, the pressure. Think about it. She still had birthing pains, and she didn't have an epidural. I had them. They're great. You haven't had babies yet? Get it all. All the drugs you can get. It's the only time I'll ever say that to you. Get all the drugs. When you walk in the door, say, here's my vein. At least that's what happened. I mean, I had an epidural that failed with Mackenzie. I had an epidural that worked with Noah. I would have had 17 more babies if I had Noah's experience. It was amazing. They're like, push. I'm like, I think I am. Am I pushing? Am I pushing? They're like, you're pushing. Good. Keep doing it. I'm like, okay, great. Then I'm like, is he out? And they're like, he's out. And I'm like, that's amazing. Afterwards, when the epidural wore off, wasn't great, but that was awesome. Here's the thing, she didn't have that. We don't think about the pressure that riding on a donkey, 10 months pregnant. I didn't want to get out of bed or get in the car or do anything, let alone ride on a. They're smelly, they're gross, they don't have shocks, they're animals. That's it. They have hooves and they're not very nice. She wrote on that. And I think a lot of us think that when we want God to use us and that when we trust God, that everything's going to be smooth sailing. I said yes to Jesus, I said my prayer, now yay. It's all going to be great. That's a lie. Sometimes it gets harder. Sometimes it gets messier. Sometimes it gets worse. The best part about this story is that God sanctified and used Mary and Joseph and changed their lives, not only yours. Here's the thing about God, we get to be a part of the process. And if you trust God, He's going to be beside you. We talked about it here, His unfailing love. His unfailing love covers you and walks beside you. I can't promise you that you're not going to experience awful pain and pressure and loss of a job, maybe divorce, maybe a loss of a child or a parent or a family member, or you're going to feel incredible amounts of pain. And it's awful. But God is beside you. Think about if Mary and Joseph would have said, no, I ain't going to trust you. Things would look totally different if they would have said no. And a lot of times what happens with us is the pressure, or we think too far ahead and think this is going to be terrible, I can't do it, I can't take that leap, I can't trust God for this because the outcome and the journey could be too scary, I'm not going to do it. And we miss the opportunity of the greatest gifts and miracles in our life. Romans 8:28 says, we know that all things work together for the good of those who loved God, those who are called according to His purpose. We know that. We all know that. And here's the thing, in the beginning of the story, quite frankly, if an angel would have come to me, I said I would pull my hand over, or I would have pulled a blanket over my head, but I would have been like, yes, whatever you say, angel, I'll do all the things that you say. She said yes in that moment, but she had no idea what was going to happen to her. She had no idea, really. She knew that Jesus was the Son of God, but she didn't know how brutally He would die. She didn't know that her son would be ridiculed. She didn't know all of those things going in, but she still said yes. She still went through with it. She still said yes. Have any of you ever seen, I have a picture of this, have you ever seen the back of a tapestry before? This is what the back of a tapestry looks like. If you cross stitch or do any sort of tapestry, that's what the back looks like. It's messy, it's muddled, it's hideous. It looks like one of those old carpets, right? You know, the ones that you did with, as your kid, those loop carpets with the plastic things. I still kind of want to do one. Maybe I'll just make my kids do one. This is what the back of a tapestry looks like. Let me show you the front of it. That's what it looks like in the front. You know what happens to us? We think our life looks like the back. Can you go back? This is what your life looks like. This is how you feel your life looks like right now. It's messy. You never feel like you're going to get out. This is never going to become what I thought I would be someplace different. God, I thought that you would do this. Mary's probably like, I am having the Son of God. Why am I in a barn? Why am I in a barn? What she failed to see, the thing about us is we're short-sighted. We only see the back. God sees the other side. He knows right where to put everything. He knows right you can go to the front. God sees that. But we get stuck in the back. We get stuck in the mess and say, God, I'm giving up. I'm not going to do this. This is ridiculous. I can't serve you anymore because this is too hard. This is ugly. This isn't what you said. I did not sign up for this. I did not sign up for this mess. Why isn't it easier? Why, God, didn't you come through where I told you? Why am I not? I know you called me to do this, but why am I over here? We're over here because we don't get it all. We're not the creator. We're not the master plan. God has it all. And if we allow him one day, when we get to heaven, we will be in heaven and get to see the good side. We'll get to see the nice part. You're going to get to see the finished project, the finished product. But if you quit in the middle, you don't get to see it. Then it is just a blob of yuck and yarn. God doesn't want you to give up in the middle. If you're in the midst of something hard, welcome to the club. Everyone in this room has faced something awful, and if you haven't, you're going to. Every one of us have wanted to quit. Some of us have, and then we get back on the train, and then we get back off at the next stop, and then we get back on. Here's the thing about quitting. It takes a lot longer to get to your destination. If you just chug along, if you just let God, and you trust that God knows what the picture's going to look like in the end, who cares about the back? Nobody displays the back. They display the front. And the best part about it is that everybody else sees the front. Everybody else sees the masterpiece coming. Only you know the real mess behind. You know what people care about? People care about you being real and honest and saying, all right, I'm not going to quit. Even though it's tough, I'm going to get through this. The beautiful thing about God's method is, sure, he could have printed up a photocopy of this picture and made us all this picture, but he didn't. The beautiful thing is that we get to go on a journey, a messy, crazy, weird journey. Who would have thought 10 years ago that you'd be listening to a lady that has a half of a deer on the front of her? Not me. Little kids were petting it this morning. Said, can I pet Mr. Deer? I said, why, sure you can, children. I did it in the open so that people don't think I'm weird. Well, I'm weird, but I didn't want kids. Never mind. God knows what he's doing. Just because you might not be at the spot that you expected to be in right now does not mean that God did not know it was going to happen this way. God gets it. And you don't have to. All you're called to do is to trust him and say, Lord, I'm going to be obedient. I'm going to read your word. I'm going to spend time with you. I'm going to be a part of a church family that cares about me and loves me. And in turn, I'm going to care about and love other people. And let him figure out the rest. Let him do the rest. It's his job. I don't have to know it. Thank God. Thank God I don't have to have it all figured out. That should give you some sort of relief that the creator of the universe knows his plans for you. Why don't you guys stand on up and we'll get ready to pray together this morning. We're just going to play that last song, Reckless Love, this morning, because I want you to understand that maybe you're experiencing something. God wants you to experience a miracle. Mary and Joseph had the opportunity to experience a miracle. And they wouldn't have experienced that miracle if they would have said no in the beginning, or if they would have quit. Don't quit. You know, the next couple of weeks, everybody's going to start giving their New Year's resolutions. Do you know the average New Year's resolution lasts? You know how long it lasts? 10 days. 10 days. It doesn't even get into the third week of January. I want to challenge you this week. Don't be a quitter. Don't give up. Don't say it's too hard. Don't say I'm not going to do it this time. I'm so thankful that God didn't say that to me. You've messed up one too many times, Beck. I'm sick of it. I've had enough. You're not doing what I asked you to do. going to go on to somebody else that's going to listen better. He didn't do that. He didn't do it. Don't do that to him. Don't give up on the only thing that will forever be by your side no matter what you do. Don't give up. Don't quit. If you have a calling on your life, don't do something else. Say, God, I'm going to trust that you're going to come through for me. If you need a new job, say, God, I'm going to trust. I'm going to be faithful in the job that I'm in, but I'm going to trust you for something better. If your marriage is struggling, do the right things. Say, Lord, I'm going to give my marriage to you. I'm going to be a great wife. I'm going to be a great husband. If your kids aren't serving God, say, Lord, I'm going to be a great mom. I'm going to be a great dad. And I'm going to fight for my kids. Don't quit. Mary could have quit on the side of the road, or she could have just stayed home and said, I'm not trialing Joseph. And our story would look very different. You need to walk the story that God has for you. Don't quit. Don't cut it short. Don't take matters into your own hands. Follow the plan that God has for you, not yours, because it's going to look very different than God's. I never would have thought, when I was a kid, I thought I'd be a missionary, and I really wanted to live in China. When I think about it now, praise Jesus, I couldn't handle it now. I needed an epidural when I had a baby. I could not have had my babies in a rice field. If I would have done what I wanted to do, I would not have the privilege of being with you guys week in and week out and getting to serve our city. We get to do that. I had a rough childhood. I had a dad that didn't care. And I could have quit and I could have said, God, I don't believe that you're a good father. I don't believe it because I didn't have an earthly one. Were there times that I did quit? Were there times that I did feel that? You better believe it. But if I would have done what I wanted to do, I wouldn't have the privilege of being where I am now. And could I have gotten here sooner? Probably. Don't take the long way around. Trust that God knows. If He created you, He gets how you work. So trust that He's got it. Father, I love you this morning. I'm thankful that I get to serve a God that knows every detail, every fiber of me, and chased me. And when I was down, picked me up and carried me to where I should have been. Father, I pray this morning that each person standing in this room would feel your presence, that they would give over control to you, knowing, God, that you would go to the farthest point of the world to get them, that we are never lost because you're always searching for us. Father, I pray that you would move in power in our hearts. Help us to see you in a new way. Help us to trust that you have everything under control. We praise you, Jesus.
You are listening to Rescue Community Church. For more information, check us out at www.rescue.cc.